there's an oft-overlooked chemistry component that NFL teams have to factor in.
You can see that Brown's frustrated. It's like Keyshawn Johnson once wrote, just give me the damn ball.
They risk adding someone to their roster that can, and likely will, poison the locker room. Let's take a look around the NFL and see if we can peg the single worst teammate currently on every NFL team. Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, QB. The Cardinals' dual-threat quarterback Kyler Murray's talent is undeniable, but his leadership skills and dedication have been consistently questioned, largely due to his tendency to isolate himself from teammates and his failure to fully immerse in game preparation. This lack of engagement has been a bit of a thorn in the side of Arizona's team cohesion and set a poor example for the younger players that they're bringing into the fold. Atlanta Falcons, Darnell Mooney, WR. While Darnell Mooney has finally gotten the fresh start that he was apparently looking for during the end of his tenure with the Bears, there are still serious questions about his ability to actually mesh into a locker room. Last season, his performance plummeted and his teammates reportedly grew frustrated with the receiver for taking plays off and being generally disengaged with what was going on in the Windy City because he had his eyes on the door. Baltimore Ravens, Nelson Agholor, WR. Nelson Agholor is another wide receiver that has built a bit of a reputation for being a bad teammate in previous stops during his NFL career. Prior to his latest stint in Baltimore, actually 2 stops prior, back in 2021, Agholor played for the Raiders, where he reportedly became storming into the locker room after a loss, yelling at his teammates, telling them that they suck. Buffalo Bills, Von Miller, Edge. Von Miller was supposed to bring a wealth of experience along with his talent to Western New York when they acquired the former Super Bowl MVP. But his time there has been marred with constant disappointment. The vet has barely been on the field because of injury, which doesn't exactly make him a bad teammate, but he hasn't exactly carried himself as a professional in his time away from the team. And he has continued to just bring negative attention to the organization and subsequently his teammates, who have all been out there grinding while he sits there recovering. Carolina Panthers, Jadeveon Clowney, Edge. Even in the NFL, where damn near everyone is a freak athlete, Jadeveon Clowney is a freak among freaks. Which begs the question, why has the former #1 overall pick out of the University of South Carolina been on so many teams since he entered the NFL? And the obvious answer, when you look at his track record, is his inability to mesh with the locker room and be a team-first guy. His work ethic has also been a bit of an issue everywhere that he's played at, and his unpredictable performance, in tandem with his high price tag and selfish attitude, has resulted in his reputation for being a bad teammate. Chicago Bears, Yannick Ngakoue, Edge. Every time Yannick Ngakoue leaves a team, he seems to do so in a huff of smoke, leaving behind a trail of disputes with coaches, team execs, and even teammates. Yeah, there's a reason why the talented edge rusher has bounced around the league so much. Cincinnati Bengals, Jermaine Burton, WR. The Bengals must have a lot of faith in their veterans to draft the admittedly talented former Alabama wide receiver. I mean, just look at what his former coach Nick Saban said about him after the selection. The #1 thing that he needs to do, I think emotional maturity is the best way to say it. You gotta do the right things in your life all the time so that you can do the best things that you can do on the field and be the best you can be. Yeah, not exactly a vote of confidence for Burton's emotional maturity or his ability to be a good teammate in a professional environment. Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, QB. No player wants to have to answer for his teammates' behavior, and, well, that's exactly what Deshaun Watson has continually forced his NFL teammates to do because he hasn't come close to taking accountability for his sordid behavior in Houston. Now, he's with Cleveland, and his Browns teammates are still having to field questions about him, which has to be particularly enraging considering his fully guaranteed contract and his horrendous play on the field. Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, QB. Nobody likes the teacher's pet, and that is exactly the kind of reputation that Dak has developed in Dallas due to his relationship with Jerry Jones and the perceived favoritism that comes with it. Plus, I can't imagine his teammates love seeing him cash the exorbitant paychecks that he gets, only to completely let them down in the playoffs time and time again. Denver Broncos, Zach Wilson, QB. At this point, the Zach Wilson story is very well known, but he came into New York thinking that he was the man, and, well, he then proceeded to drop the ball when it came to walking the walk. What made matters even worse for Wilson, though, and what ultimately soiled his reputation as a teammate, was his unwillingness to take accountability and blend into the locker room. He has a fresh start in Denver, and it's hard to imagine that he hasn't been humbled by his NFL experience thus far, but still, Wilson very much needs to prove that he is a good teammate before we believe otherwise. Detroit Lions, Jameson Williams, WR. It has been some tough sledding for the decorated Alabama receiver since entering the NFL ranks. Williams has been plagued by attitude and behavioral issues that raise some serious concerns about his reliability as a teammate. Plus, because Williams is talented and influential amongst the younger players on the roster, there's always a fear that he could start an endemic of selfish behavior in a locker room. Green Bay Packers, Josh Jacobs, RB. Granted, the Raiders were a bit of a dumpster fire the last couple of seasons, but when Josh Jacobs openly criticized former teammates and coaching staff, he really opened up a can of worms. No one wants a guy in the locker room that causes the need to worry about whether or not he'll speak publicly about what goes on behind closed doors. Houston Texans, Stephon Diggs, WR. Now that Stephon Diggs has staged multiple dramatic exits from previous teams, it's hard for him to fight the bad teammate allegations, especially when you factor in his past criticisms of teammates and coaches. It just seems like it's not a matter of if, but when in Houston. Indianapolis Colts, Adonai Mitchell, RB. Adonai Mitchell's character and maturity concerns were really the only red flags about the talented lanky receiver during the draft process. Teams want to know that the guy that they draft will be able to be a good teammate and smoothly integrate into a professional team environment. The Colts were ultimately the team to roll the dice on him, but he's going to need to prove that he can be a team-first guy in Indy if he wants this veteran roster to fully accept him. Jacksonville Jaguars, Mac Jones, QB. Mac Jones' reported frustration with coaching decisions during his last couple of years in New England and the utter lack of accountability that he took for his abysmal performance is not what you expect out of a franchise quarterback, or heck, even a halfway decent teammate for that matter. Kansas City Chiefs, Kadarius Toney, WR. Kadarius Toney's time with the New York Giants was marred by conflicts with coaches and teammates, and what can only be described as a complete lack of any professionalism. He has cleaned up his act a little bit in Kansas City, but the controversial wide receiver still seems woefully unprepared for game day way too often. Las Vegas Raiders, Devontae Adams, WR. Devontae Adams isn't quite at the T.O. or Ocho Cinco level of diva wide receiver, but he has shown some diva characteristics over the years, criticizing team decisions and heck, even demanding trades. Los Angeles Chargers, Joey Bosa, Edge. Bosa is a great player, but he has a bad tendency of letting his ego get the best of him. There's only so many times that a guy can get boneheaded penalties and make dumb public statements that affect his team before he gets tagged as a bad teammate. Los Angeles Rams, Jimmy Garoppolo, QB. Okay, so Jimmy G hasn't exactly been a bad teammate, but he certainly has his work cut out for him in trying to remain a good one in Los Angeles. Yes, the Rams are Matt Stafford's team, but when a former start of Garoppolo's caliber is brought into the fold, it can easily create factions in the locker room. Something he reportedly did back during his time in New England many moons ago. Miami Dolphins, Eli Apple, CB. There are few players in the NFL more reviled than Eli Apple. Literally everywhere he has gone, he has rubbed players on his and opposing teams the wrong way. It is absolutely stunning that teams continue to roll the dice on the cornerback, considering his talent hardly outweighs the negatives, if it does at all. Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison, WR. NFL locker rooms are used to absorbing questionable behavior from talented young players, but Jordan Addison is really pushing the limit in Minnesota. The Vikings wideout continues to get caught driving irresponsibly and is drawing lots of negative attention for the team. New England Patriots, Juju Smith-Schuster, WR. Over the years, Juju Smith-Schuster's social media antics and obsession with personal branding have drawn some criticism from both fans and teammates. No one wants to go to war with a TikTok wide receiver. He has dialed it back in recent years, but he's still far from popular amongst his fellow players. New Orleans Saints, Chase Young, Edge. Chase Young is set to have a much-needed fresh start in New Orleans, but it has been far from smooth sailing for the former first overall pick since he entered the league. There have been flashes of brilliance, but he's lacked the dedication and team-first mentality that players need to establish any level of staying power in the league. He's been accused of taking plays off and losing focus, something that you can't do when you're supposed to be the leader of a team. New York Giants, Evan Neal, RT. When playing in New York, or New Jersey technically speaking, players have to be mindful of their words when speaking publicly. Something Evan Neal outright neglected to do last year when he roasted Giants fans, essentially calling them burger flippers, all because they had some fair criticisms of the team. And because of this, his fellow teammates were put in a terrible position of having to answer for his outbursts. New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers, QB. All of it can be erased if he balls out this year, but Aaron Rodgers has not exactly been the consummate teammate since joining New York ahead of the 2023 season. Not only has he continued to cause a media firestorm with his surly, provocatory demeanor, but now that he's back from his injury, well, he can't even be bothered to show up for mandatory minicamp. Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown, WR. A.J. Brown has been a game changer on the field for Philly since they fleeced Tennessee for the talented wide receiver. But some of the red flags that pushed the Titans front office to sell low on Brown has started to rear their ugly heads as of late, as he has had a few notable confrontations with both teammates and coaches on the sidelines recently. Pittsburgh Steelers, Cameron Sutton, CB. Bad guy, bad teammate. Really don't have to go super deep on this one. Not only was Sutton's behavior reprehensible, but he also put his team and the players on it in a very terrible position. San Francisco 49ers, Brandon Ayuk, WR. Obviously, guys have to do what they have to do to maximize their earning potential while they can as professional athletes. But you'd like to think that since Ayuk plays for a team like the 49ers, which has been so close to Super Bowl glory over the past few seasons, that he would show some discretion with his methodology for capturing his payday. You know, instead of creating a huge distraction heading into the season. The Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith, QB. Geno Smith has been the feel-good story of the NFL in recent years, as he revitalized his career with the Seahawks. But we need not forget that when he was one of the highest-paid players on the Bills, he tried to stiff a 6th-round pick and end-of-the-roster guy in Ike Enemkpali on a bet. The defensive end subsequently broke Smith's jaw, which no one would make the mistake of suggesting as the right thing to do, but Smith clearly set this train in motion. Particularly troubling when you factor in the higher baseline expectations for leadership and being team first when it comes to being a QB. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Sterling Shepard, WR. Sterling Shepard hasn't been quite as outspoken as some other wideouts, but he has at times expressed frustration to his team about his role despite what can only be described as mediocre output. Tennessee Titans, Jamal Adams, safety. Jamal Adams has proven time and time again to be the quintessential me guy. This is going to be his first season down in Nashville, so maybe he'll come correct. But his outspoken nature and obsession with personal goals over team success have caused division previously, and it may well do the same in the Titans locker room. Washington Commanders, Austin Eckler, RB. While there's no denying Austin Eckler's talent in both running and catching the football, his public negotiations and dissatisfaction with team decisions have drawn ire from teammates in the past. There are definitely questions as to how the outspoken star will integrate into the Commanders' locker room considering his past and the organization's previous issues with high-profile acquisitions. But hey, who do you think is the worst teammate on your favorite NFL team heading into 2024? Who do you think we got right? Where do you think we missed? Is there anyone that you would have added to this list? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, well, subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.